Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're staying safe and staying inside if you can, wherever you are in this pandemic-riddled world that we find ourselves navigating at this time. I, for one, am glad and feeling like I dodged a major bullet that I'm not having to navigate this crisis before now, because I doubt that I would have been adequately equipped to cope with the situation of the world at present. So I'm feeling very fortunate for my given circumstances and empathetic to those that still have to work out and be exposed during this really potentially dangerous time in our history. And it is a cold, rainy day here in New York City, which I look forward to these now because I hope that it will encourage more people to stay inside, and hopefully we can get through this a little bit sooner and make some more developments in the positive. And gratitude's going to play a lot into our show today, because my guest on the show today is Nick Lavallee. Nick I first became aware of after hearing him on Matt Pryor from the Get Up Kids podcast, Nothing to Write Home About. Nick's a stand-up comedian in Manchester, New Hampshire. He also runs a really excellent Instagram account where he makes custom action figures called @WickedJoyful. I want to make sure I get everybody who listens to the show to go follow @WickedJoyful on Instagram, because he's doing some really cool stuff. Nick is also the frontman for the power pop band Danaher. If you're a fan of Fountains of Wayne, Green Day, any kind of chipper, upbeat, poppy rock and roll, I think you would really enjoy their stuff. Their first album is available on Spotify. They have a new single out as well, which you can listen to wherever you get your music. And I really enjoyed this conversation. This plays a lot into what kind of the general tone that I try to convey on this show, which is we kind of have these moments. The world at its present moment is disaster, and our current leadership is continuing to exemplify that. But there are shreds of optimism and light amidst the inky black clouds of darkness that I like to look for, and conversations like the one I had with Nick are a big part of that. So I'm super excited to share this with you guys. I want to hear from you. If you're a fan of the show, if you listen to this, I would love to read some of your comments or messages on the show. So you can tweet to me @ComicWillCarey. You could also message me on Instagram, WillCarey23, CAREY. You can also message me on Instagram at the podcast's account @Between Awesome and Disaster. And I'd love to hear from you guys. I've done 140 something episodes of this show. So if you know someone who needs to fill some time in quarantine, I'm here for you guys. And I hope you're doing well. And let's get into it. Let's go to my chat with action figure maker @WickedJoyful on Instagram, Danaher frontman and comedian Nick Lavallee. All right, here we go. Thank you for your time, Nick Lavallee. How are you doing, man? I feel responsible for everybody I podcast with this past couple months, the last month or so.
Yeah. I mean, I feel very grateful. To be very honest with you, I feel very grateful. That's probably the first emotion I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I feel what a lot of people are probably feeling, which is uncertainty, anxiety, and the negative things. But I think putting the positive thing first, and I like to just say I'm very grateful, because for everything I have in my life, I'm very grateful for. I'm grateful for my health, and I'm not unemployed right now, so that's something to be happy about. You know, yeah. So, but I also think it'd be rude if I just said I feel great. Like
Yeah,
so.
you feel as I feel as good as I can right now, given the state of the world. Because same way, I'm luckily still working, and I am still able to be creative inside my apartment. So the only thing that's been taken away from me is like the stage and like socialization. But I'm fortunate. Not a lot of people are fortunate right now with this thing, and you.
Exactly. And I have so much empathy for my friends who work in the service industry and work at clubs and work at bars and restaurants. And I have a lot of friends that specifically do that. So, that's why I'm not quick to say I'm great, because I think personally, like, I'm doing all right. But what I mean by that is, and I'm grateful for it. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not as like if if we're on a sinking ship, we're at least we're in lifeboats, and there's a lot of people like that are like trying to find like a door to hang on to.
yeah, yes. Yeah, I don't want to put it in Titanic terms, but yeah. I mean, you just did.
I compare a lot of stuff to that. You can't see my room where I'm at, but I have a mini model of the Titanic on the shelf. It's something that I read a lot about. Like you know how people have like an odd thing, like it seems like every man at a certain age starts reading about World War II. I've been reading
Yep.
about the Titanic since I was like 8. That's my
See, when
thing.
I think of Titanic, is it bad that the first thing I think of is Leo? Like that's what I think of. When I think of Titanic. And maybe I should also think of Kate Winslet next. That's probably what I think of next.
Hmm. I was
Um,
I listened to a podcast about Titanic and thinking about it in with like my 2020 mindset. The story is really about Kate Winslet's character and her like trans and her character arc. Like she has a very developed character arc. Like she starts in one place and then ends in a very different place compared to other character. I would say compared to other movies where the female characters are like a little more like one dimensional.
yeah, and also we could probably draw some similarities between an 80s classic and the 90s classic of Titanic. And if I said what it was, you would probably you might be surprised.
Which one? Which one is that? What are you thinking of?
Based on what you just said, I'm going to say that there's probably some comparisons we can draw between Titanic and Dirty Dancing.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. It's been a while since I've seen Dirty Dancing, so I'd love to hear your
Well,
thought on
Dirty
that.
Dancing, among other things, Dirty Dancing is really a movie about um, uh, class,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Economic division between the people that were visiting and vacationing at the camp and people who worked there, namely the performers.
Yeah. That makes
And
absolute
Titanic
sense.
has those same exact themes.
100%. The rich people were the ones who got in lifeboats, and the immigrants, the poor, the work, and the majorly like the only non-white people you see in that movie are locked below decks and not helped at all.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, man.
didn't.
See, now you got to watch Dirty Dancing.
I do, and I've got plenty of time to do it right
Yeah,
now.
there you go. Put it on your queue, man.
Absolutely.
This is okay. So I have an Instagram account called Wicked Joyful. You've got a
Yes.
podcast called Between Awesome and Disaster,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like we're starting off right now, like closer to disaster. And we're talking about Titanic. We're talking about the dark times that we're currently living in. Man, I hope we get to some awesome soon,
I
Will.
I th- I I think so, man. Well, that's kind of what I love talking about is like all of those moments that kind of fall into those two categories, and then all the parts in between, and that's what I think life is. Um, but Nick, if we're talking about awesome and joyful, um, it's you're one of the people that I put in that category, man. You're the first. I feel like you're probably the first person I've had on the show that's comedian, plays in a band, plays in a great band, and makes action figures. Definitely the first action figure maker I've ever interviewed.
I do all three of those things, and I miraculously hold a day job.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, very. Yeah. So I'm tired. That's. I'm very tired, but I've also, we were talking before we started. Maybe we talked. Well, I mentioned it. I said I'm grateful to have my health. Like, I'm approaching 5 years sober. Haven't had a drop of alcohol since November 3rd, 2015, and I have all this free time. Like people now are saying like, oh wow, I have all this free time because I'm quarantined and I'm regulated to home. It's like, man, I feel like I've been making the most of my time and time when I'm home for so long now. Maybe I'm just sort of used to it. I'm actually finding more time now because, with no live performance, no comedy, so I'm like focused more on the action figure end of things.
mhm.
But yeah, I do all those things.
Yeah, and what
I do
got you
them all.
and what got you into doing the action figures?
So I created an account on Instagram called Wicked Joyful, and I did so like the beginning of 2019, like I want to say around January 2019, January, February. And the idea was to create an account that I could exclusively show photos of my vintage 80s, 90s, early 2000s like goods and wares.
Hmm.
I'm just like I just love that time period. I like aesthetically advertising and box art from that time period, and I obviously love the music from then.
Hmm.
All the nostalgic reasons to like pop culture from that time period. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have an Instagram account to like show that stuff and like maybe connect with people that are like-minded and also into that. And then I thought maybe I could sell things through there. And then I had started following some other artists who were doing custom action figures like Dano Brown and Hands of Doom. And I loved their stuff and actually bought some pieces from some different artists. And when I got them, I was like, well, maybe I can do this because I like to paint. I've been doing graphic design since the 90s with like different bands I was in or whatever. And
Hmm.
I have a background in media production, so I was like, oh, I could do this. I could assemble the packaging, and so I just did it, and it just like it kind of took off like right away. I mean, it took off like gradually, but like there was more exponential growth to Wicked Joyful than anything I had ever done, like whether that was musically or comedically. Like, and some friends of mine pointed out early on, they were like, yo, you found your niche. Like this is because you're able to combine all these things that you love and like put it in this medium.
Hmm.
And people are and they're like, that's why people are noticing there's so much heart behind it. So I kept doing it. Like it was just fun. And it was a way for me to have something creative that wasn't stand up, wasn't necessarily comedy, and because I honestly didn't know my place in comedy scene anymore, and I still don't like I'm doing it, but I was sort of like I wasn't jaded or bitter at all. I think I'd just quit if I was bitter or jaded. I felt a little lost. Does that make sense?
Totally, because that makes absolute sense to me. Because I first heard of you from Matt Pryor's podcast, and you guys talked about like you'd done like some sets at the Laugh Factory. Like, so I know you've been around, but then there's a period of time, and I don't know. I've been doing this 13. I've been doing stand up for 13 years, and if you're not hitting like the traditional expected bench points of like late night spot, half hour special, net Comedy Central, Netflix, all TV show, all that stuff, you start kind of like, well, what is the thing? So yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I think that's where I was at cuz it was shortly before I hit 10 years of doing stand up, and I had some, again, I'm very grateful. I had some opportunities early on that some people dream of getting, not that it was anything big, but getting into a club like the Laugh Factory and being able to open for Dice at the Wilbur or like Bo Burnham at a college or whatever. Like all those things are great and like cool, and they're sort of like benchmarks, like, oh, you got into a national club, and like,
Yeah.
oh, you opened for the hot up and coming guy, and oh, you opened for like a legend, or all these things. Like you hit these like I'll call it mini milestones, right? Things that
Totally.
aren't necessarily like a TV spot or something, or like going to put you in front of a national stage, but like
It's a
they
step
do
up
sort of like
from
keep you going.
yeah, it's a step up from like being an open micer.
Yeah. And those things happened, and then they would happen again occasionally or whatever, but I didn't know my place in all of it. And I recognized like, oh, okay, well, I'm a guy. I started realizing like, okay, well, I'm the guy who has been doing stand-up comedy a while, that has done some cool stuff, but you know, more people I think knew me as like the guy who booked a cool show, a popular showcase in New England.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was bringing in national acts, so that was successful. People know me from that, and then, but like I didn't know my place in all of it. Like, and also as a comic who books a show, I go out of my way and I try to make sure that we have an eclectic group of voices like on our calendar. So like
Yeah.
I want to bring in like people of color, women, LGBTQ, and like, and so I'm a type of booker who like wants to give a platform for those voices, and I do the best I can in New Hampshire and bringing in comics from all over the Northeast and beyond. Um, but I also recognize the importance of putting that type of person on stage, and like those, like, that those groups of people on stage, and I just, and the voices that should be heard that aren't heard enough. And then I was like, well, what am I doing if I'm not dedicating my life to stand up full time? Um, how much of it really makes sense? I felt super lost, Will. Like, I don't even know how else to, I can't even quite articulate it outside of like
No, I
feeling lost and knowing, like, I didn't want to be part of the problem. Does that make sense?
oh totally. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Um, there's a couple of things you're saying that are really resonating with me because like when you think about like the idea of being a full time stand up comedian and the circumstances that have to happen for that to occur. If you are not known as a national headliner that can like sell out like weekends at clubs, if you're not doing that, then the ways that I think comics that maybe would be at our in our I don't want to say level, but you kind of know what I mean. You're either gonna like your options are like you're gonna be like the opener for somebody, which is great, but that can go away if something ever happens to that person, or you're gonna like get in with like an agency and do like the college or the corporate scene, which I respect the people that can do that, but is not something that everybody would want to do because there's lots of restrictions and it's a very specific kind of thing that they're looking for. And yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I I definitely look at there's pockets and scenes of comedy that do very well independently, and I would never begrudge anybody for doing what they want to do, but it's not me, and I just kind of want to do my thing, and I've always like you, I want to help. Like when I was running a show in New York at the Creek, I don't know if you've been to the Creek and the Cave.
I've done the Creek 3 times.
So when I ran a show there for 2 years, and I always try to make sure, have many different, as diverse lineup as as funny and diverse lineup as you can, because I listen to people say that, representation matters. And yeah, exactly. I want as few people thinking of me and going, oh, that fucking guy, as possible, if that makes sense, you know?
Sure. Yeah, I think I just also I started realizing like, well, if I'm not going to be a comedian full time or work towards that, if what I'm going to be is the guy who runs a weekly show and then does his like weekend warrior Northeast gigs, um, how how much do I really care about this anymore? And these are like deep like conversations I was having with myself and professionals, and I had to figure it out. But I also needed like something else that I could focus on, right? And that something else that I could focus on was this thing, this wicked joyful thing.
Yeah, that's
So it kind of like
yeah, that's
it
awesome,
came at
dude.
the right time. Yeah, and I've been doing it, and then it just sort of like snowballed throughout 2019, and just had so much like I said earlier, like the exponential growth of it was just faster than anything else that I had done,
Hmm.
as far as entertainment goes, or comedy, or music goes, like so. I just been loving it, um, and what I'm trying to do is sort of establish it as like I feel like it can like go so many different ways, and the possibilities are endless, and it's so fun, and like that's what it's about. And uh, just the name alone is wicked joyful. It's kind of a double entendre in the sense of wicked, because that's the New England wicked
Hmm.
joyful, or you can see it as the contrast of wicked and joyful. And I feel like it's just so much of me, in the art that I'm doing, and then so there's so much of my personality inserted into it, and I'd like to I'd like to just do more with the account, and connect with people. I want to find a way to connect with people, and the people that I've met through doing it, are so sweet and so kind and supportive. And as much as I've met people in comedy that share those same positive attributes, um, I've met the opposite, or I've felt the opposite feelings. And so to me right now, it's creatively, I think it's the most important thing that I'm doing and can be doing. Um, so I'm happy to have found it. Again, I'm grateful.
Yeah, man. That's kind of how I feel about doing this podcast, because I found a way to be creative and connect with people, and then also connect with people who have made things that mean a lot to me. Like I've gotten to interview bands and artists like our mutual friend MC Lars. Like no other universe is
Hell
that.
yeah.
What other universe does that happen? Uh, Absolutely, man. And it's to sound kind of pretentious about it for a second, if we consider, if we view ourselves as like artists, you know, we're you have your mediums. You've got the guitar and songwriting, you've got jokes, and then you've got visual art, which is wicked joyful, in these action figures, which are great. I love when I see something really cool pop up on your feed. I'm like, oh man, he did a really good job on that.
Yeah, and I think I've gotten better. I mean, this is how I feel about it though. Like I feel like the figure has to be good, but the card art has to be great, and that's what kind of makes the whole package a piece of collectible art that it can be displayed in your home or office or wherever, uh, because they are bootlegs. They're
Sure.
bootleg. Everything about it's supposed to be like bootleg. It's not supposed to look entirely perfect. It's There's supposed to be sort of like a youthful kind of fun, um, like school art project quality to them, right? Like that's kind of what
Mm-hmm.
makes it charming, right? Is like it's not supposed to look like it's absolutely perfect. And like maybe that's why it speaks to me, because I also think I feel like whether it's been my punk rock past, playing in like punk ska bands in the late
Mm-hmm.
90s, early 2000s, or even my stand up, like stand up in general is like should be kind of rough around the edges, right? Like at least like not in a theater. If it's in a club or elsewhere, like it should kind of be like always sort of a work in progress or ongoing and rough around the edges. And maybe that's why this action figure thing, I'm able to capture it so well, is that it's not supposed to necessarily look perfect.
Exactly. The same way, like, nightclub stand up comedy is not a polished, perfect, like, comedy special, because it can't be. You're dealing with environmental things. It's a live thing. You're feeding off the crowd. They're feeding off of you. You're reacting to them in real time. It's a tightrope act. It's like a walking on a tightrope wire, and that's what I find exciting about it. So similarly, I imagine I'm drawing some comparisons between these two branches of your artistic expression, Nick.
Yeah.
So you were in bands before you did
Yeah,
comedy.
I was in a band from when I was like 18 until I was like 24, and we played shows like in the Northeast a lot, and we kind of came up. We were like around the time like bands, the Boston bands, the time that kind of like we were coming up with, or bands like that still play, like Big D and the Kids Table. That'd be one of those bands, and
Mm-hmm.
that whole like Fork in Hand Records, like Boston punk ska scene, post Boston's explosion, like late 90s, early 2000s. Uh, yeah, I played in that band. This band called $5, and that was fun too, because when I did Matt Pryor's podcast, like however many years ago that was, like 6 or 7 years ago, there was actually a couple kids who emailed me and said that they saw $5 like in when we had done like a couple of tours, because I referenced this $5 show that was in just outside of Pittsburgh, and we crashed with this kid whose dad thought it was cool that he had a band, and one of those, like his friend, like emailed me and was like, he bragged about you guys crashing at his house for a year. Like it was really fun. But yeah, that's what I did when I was like a teenager into my early 20s, was playing a punk ska band. And I learned so much from that. Actually, before we started this chat, I was texting with the bass player of that band because he found a bunch of old flyers,
Uh huh.
and we were just like reminiscing about those times, and I felt like I learned a lot. Like I learned a lot from my shitty teenage punk ska band, which I've said, like the least embarrassing part of my history is playing in a punk ska band. Everyone likes to poke fun of that like genre and that era, but like that's the least embarrassing part of my history.
Right.
Uh, I've done a bunch of bad stuff, good stuff, bad stuff between then and now, but uh, I feel like I learned so much, like in terms of like networking and
You learn a lot of business
communicating to an
skills.
audience. Tons of business, graphic design. Like, I mean, I taught myself Photoshop from that band, and I'm very proficient in Photoshop, and that all started. That was not school or college. That was like being in a punk band and putting out our own records and going on tour, and that's it was such a learning experience.
Oh yeah, 100%. You
And
learn marketing, events planning, uh, sound engineering, songwriting, guitar repair. Because the guitar breaks, well, you're gonna have to figure it out before the next show.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So
I
you,
think people get hung up on like I wonder if people nowadays like being part of the process, or if that's harder to see. Or man, that's like probably a whole other podcast. I but I wonder if people would appreciate. Maybe they didn't want to appreciate that. They want to see the polish, right?
um, I think you're like general consumer, like person who buys who would buy CDs at Walmart. You know, that person, they're probably less interested in that, but there are creative people who definitely want to know about, oh, like I'm one of those people. It's like, oh, ska chords, like how, like those like upstroke kind of upstroke kind of things. Like I remember listening to like Real Big Fish and going, how do you do that on the guitar? What shape is that? I have no idea. And then I learned like, well, you can just kind of move an A or an F shape around, and that's ska. And then you can just kind of match it up with the low note, and then that's your bass line. I'm sure there. And I think especially now that the that show business, and I use giant air quotes when I say that, is so like niche and divided up, and everyone's like making their own things. I think lots of people are very interested in, well, how do you do this? How do you how did you make that picture? How did you make that short clip of a video of your podcast? Stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe. I know with uh I know with the action figure stuff, um so many people will say like, "Wow, did you use a 3D printer?" No. You had to have used the 3D printer. No. And it's like I tell them, and then other people want to have asked. They're like, "I'd love to see you do like a time lapse and show your process." And I've kind of said to them like, "Well, why?" And uh but so maybe there's the answer. Maybe like other creative people are interested in the process, like just to see things come to life. But Joe Consumer, the average person, maybe not so much.
That's kind of what I
It's
would
so
think.
it's also ridiculous. But then I also think about like, well, damn, I'm already making it, so I have to like make content about me making content.
It's very meta.
Like that's just it's so meta, and it's like it's also so much. Like it's already a lot of work to make them. Like now I have to like video myself making them, and then edit the video, and then like add like additional graphics and a narration or something. It's like, okay, well, but at the same time, I've thought to myself, well, shit, if I'm not doing stand up as much as I had been, there's more time. And I think that's what I'm learning during this pandemic is I'm talking about our earlier point in the conversation about like how much does stand up mean to me. I'm having a lot of realizations. It's only been a couple weeks, but at the same time, like I'm realizing just how much I enjoy my house on
Mm-hmm.
Friday and Saturday nights. Whereas for years I've had gigs almost every Friday and Saturday night, be it music or a lot of stand up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to have those nights back after working a 40-hour week at a day job, like to have the Friday and Saturday nights back. And I'm realizing like, well, shit, if I were to focus on Wicked Joyful, then I can just work on Wicked Joyful like every Friday and Saturday night instead of driving a couple of hours to do one of these Weekend Warrior stand-up one-nighters in New England.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to say these things out loud to another person.
Yeah, no, I think we're figuring
That's
out.
not a therapist. And
Right.
other people will hear it and be like, man, this guy must hate stand-up. I don't hate. I love stand-up, and I'll forever produce our show at the Shaskeen here in Manchester, New Hampshire. But I just don't. Right now, this point in my life, I don't know how important performing stand-up comedy is to me. I just don't know. I don't know how important it is to me, and I think some people are going to come up. I don't think I'm going to be alone when all is said and done. I think you're going to have people who love it that much more and want to like just maybe they'll make it their full-time gig, and then I think you'll have people like myself who are like, man, I found I because I wasn't like saying self-deprecating things about myself every Friday and Saturday night for a few months, or just like I wasn't like regurgitating the same act or whatever it is. I
Hmm.
think they're gonna have some realizations like about themselves by not having done stand-up in
I
a
th-
while.
yeah, I think so because I've come to the opinion, and I don't know if you would agree with this. When I first moved to New York, I hit like mics and shows really hard because I do think it is important when you are new to stand up that it's about putting in time on stage and to the point where it feels like second nature. And then I'm at the point now where I started hitting a mode of diminishing returns, and also I was sad a lot. Be again being out late at night, those really late nights, and doing like just the wall of apathy. So I've been, and when I say wall of apathy, I mean like other comics at mics, and there's this whole like other new generation that are coming through the mics at the venues that I do shows at now, which is kind of, I kind of feel like an old man is like, oh, these young kids.
Oh, totally.
But I'm glad they're there, and I'm now at a point where I'm to in order to stave off that like jaded and cynicism that we mentioned earlier. I'm doing it in a way. I'm doing my like stand up comedy in the way that keeps me excited and engaged in it, because the grind, it's
Maybe
called
I'll
a
find a
grind for a
place
while.
like that too. Yeah, yeah, and maybe I'll find a place like that as well. I could very well, and I think I'll always be able to keep my foot in it because I do produce a show, and I'm constantly meeting comics and seeing familiar faces, meeting new faces, and putting people up at my house, and so I always have a foot in it, and um, there's enough comics who seem to like me, both as a person and a comedian. So I think I can sort of like pivot my focus on this thing, which is Wicked Joyful, while um, and always retain my place in the comedy community in some capacity. And then maybe if I want, I can flip them. Who knows? But
Abs-
it feels again. I'm just so grateful that I have this other outlet. And I'm grateful that I stopped drinking because that's what got me playing music again. So
uh-huh. Oh, is
I'm
that how?
very content. I'm very content.
That's excellent, man. Yeah, I did want to ask you about some of these things. So you mentioned you started playing music again after you started drinking. Congrats on 5 years of sobriety, by the way. That's an amazing achievement. So how does Donna here start?
Donna started. My old band had a reunion show around 2015, and shortly after I had stopped drinking, and I just started playing music again. Like that was sort of the thing I had to kind of focus on. And if I wasn't booked or something on weekend, when I had free time, then it was like I picked up the guitar again because I had to relearn those old ska punk songs. And then it was like, well, damn, I should just keep writing again. So I started writing songs, and it was just a focus. It was something else to focus on, and idle hands. So it was like I kept at it, and then the guys that I had been playing, the guys that weren't in the original $5 lineup, but had played the reunion shows with me. I said, hey, can we just keep going with this and like write some new songs and start a band? And they were all about it. So we did. And then we actually, to be totally honest, like when we recorded, we hadn't even played a show when we recorded our album before Danaher played a single show, because I was so adamant about I wanted to write an excellent record, and I didn't want to let live shows influence our writing, our sound, our what the audience thought. Like I wanted to just write what I felt was a great record, right?
Right.
And that's what we did. We spent like basically, I guess when all is said and done, I guess like 6 months to a year, I'll say, I spent like writing those songs before we like got into a studio. And then the demo, like it was honestly, it wasn't really supposed to be much of an album per se. I was like, well, let's record a really great demo, right? I was like, let's record a really great demo and then we'll see what we can do, or maybe we'll put it out. And then we met up with this dude, Gary, who produced like these records for this band Transit. They were on Rise Records. He did like a 4 Year Strong EP and a couple other things. I loved his records, and he was an old friend. And I just asked him like, hey, would you be up for recording some of these songs? And he was like, yeah, man, come down 2 days. We'll just bang them out. How many songs? I was like, 8 songs, 8 full band songs. And he was like, all right. He's like, yeah, we'll just bang it out. It'll be so fun. And I think he thought he was getting a $5 record, like a goofy kind of punk ska thing. And we went, so we were going to spend 2 days, and we went to a studio to start tracking. And he just was like, he had this look on his face when we were sort of like just getting drum sounds and just sort of like running through stuff just so he could like set up his mics in his studio and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this look on his face, and he's like, man, that's a good song. And I was like, all right. And he's like, keep playing. He's like, keep playing. And he was like, he had this like confused look on his face, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, he's probably just like, in my mind, I'm just like, because, you know, the guys are in like a big like sound room playing together, and I'm in the control room with him, just like playing guitar and sort of like putting down scratch vocals.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all playing as a band through headphones. And then he was like, damn. He's like, play another song. So we played another song. I think it was Wrong Side of Webster Street. We played that. And just as it got to the solo, he just like threw down his headphones and like jumped out of his seat. And he was like, this is going to take way longer. So he's like, hang on. So then like I take off my headphones. He tells the guys he'll be right back. He brings me in the other room and he goes, dude, this is going to take so much longer. And I looked at him and I said, is it that bad?
Right.
That's that's comedy, man. That's like, you know, that at that point, that was like 7 years of self-deprecating, beat up comedy. Like, you know, other comics saying you're a hack, but you're still getting gigs and applause. Just like, so insecure. Like,
right.
Like, insecure. And I'm like, is it that bad? And he goes, are you fucking kidding me? And I was like, no. Is it terrible? And he was like, dude, he was just like, you wrote hits. He was like, you wrote really great songs. He's like, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I thought this was going to be like, he's like, $5 wasn't bad. And he was like, but I thought it was going to be like goofy and like we were just going to bang out these songs. And he's like, this is great. He's like, I'm in. So he basically was like so like into it that he was like, I'm part of this. We're going to take our time with this. We're going to make a damn record. So that 2 days turned into like, we spent like 2 months working on that album. Lot of nights and weekends in like a 2 months. A lot. When I say nights and weekends, I mean like getting to the studio at 6 a.m. and staying there till 1 a.m. and then doing it again the next day, like Saturday and Sundays, and then just like squeezing in like whatever weeknights we could after our day jobs and everything else. And I'm very proud of it. I mean, that's where we wrote a lot of the harmonies and a lot of the little guitar parts, all the little ear candy that you don't quite hear, you know, but does stick in your brain.
Yeah,
So
it exactly. And that really enjoyed that record, man. Like the guitar tones are so good. Like it like the songs all kind of have like that sort of like punkish power pop kind of feel, and the guitars are like not like your standard like cranked Marshall kind of sound.
right, yeah, it's almost like somewhere in the middle, right? Like it's like replacements, kind of
Yeah,
90s, like 80s, like almost like 80s, like punk or like indie rock, like replacements and stuff. But then you also have like this mix of like 90s grungy sounding tones with like the acoustic underneath.
yeah.
I think that's the secret weapon.
Yeah, I remember I haven't been in a proper in a well my band we just cut like a quick demo a few months ago before all this happened. But the last time I was in like a proper studio, I was all about like layering guitars, and I think my high school band we had like 4 tracks of guitar, and I was mixing a Strat like single coil, like I had my Stratocaster, which I had to sell. I want to get another one someday, and a Les Paul, like mixing the humbucker and the single coil sound, like to create this really unique blend. Like I love stuff like that kind of tinkering.
Totally. Um, yeah, I'm like proud. I'm super proud of that first record and the stuff that Gary did on there. And Tristan, who plays lead guitar, he wrote so many cool like lead parts. It's really fun. It's really fun and it's like laborious, right? Making a record, and um I enjoy the process. And I also like, especially when you're able to, you can, if you can afford it, to take the time to make it, you have to think about like, well, damn, this is gonna live forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so proud of it. I hope I can listen to that. Like I listened back to my old band, like, stuff I recorded when I was a teenager, and I listened back, and it's like there's a lot of cringe. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
not just lyrically, but just like musically, just like, oh man, like we actually played out of tune on a record, like stuff like that.
Sure,
And like
sure.
my voice is flat, and that's fine. And I can like, you can also say like, look, I was a teenager, and like that was the time, and like this fit the time, or whatever. But I want to look back at Donaher and be able to, if some parts of it sound dated, like that you can't help, like, okay, because music evolves, and like the
Mm-hmm.
production value evolves, and what people have come to expect evolves and stuff. But if I can look back and just be like, damn, those are good songs, and they're like, those songs are like wholesome. they're like, they're very sweet. um
Oh,
so I
totally,
know
man.
I just want to be able to look back at that first record, and also like I listened to it, I know who the songs are about, or what I wrote them about, or who I wrote them for, and like it's all good, and like I think we shake things up on the new one that we have been spending this past year recording. I think like there's stuff on there that I think might make people's eyes widen a little bit, but I don't think it's like, um we're not doing like, uh we're not like talking about doing Xannies or something. Like, but I still think it's wholesome and sweet. But I also think there's some stuff on there about depression and isolation, coincidentally, which is what we're all gonna dealing with, or will be dealing with for a while, I think. Um, so we'll see. I love it. If if anyone asks, if anyone, if someone were to ask me like, well, what's like the, like you as an art, like if someone were to ask me artistically, like what's the best representation, or I feel most confident in right now, today, as we record this in April of 2020, I
Mm-hmm.
would, I would say Wicked Joyful and my band Donaher. Like I think pointing to my stand up would be like the last thing because I look back at things I said or did on stage even a year ago and I'm like, "Oh God, like I hope that doesn't haunt me." Not that
Mm-hmm.
not that I think I've ever like put any people down or like uh made people feel uncomfortable or said things that would hurt like a whole population of people, but just my own, like, I don't know, I watch clips of myself and sometimes I'm just like, wait, who is that? Like, what? Like, it's this cartoon. I feel like sometimes it's like this cartoon version of me. Like, I don't know how authentic it is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can. I've.
This is like a real. This I just got real. Like, I just got very, very real. But we evolve, right? Like, we evolve as people. Like, you want to be better than you were 5 years ago as a person, right?
I
Or 10
100.
years ago.
I 100% do. And yeah, I want to look back at the stuff I made 10 years ago and be like, oh, what was I thinking? Because I think that's a sign of growth.
Emotional growth, mental growth, emotional growth to me, that's like the number one. That's what I think not drinking I've benefited I think from not drinking other than looking significantly more cute would be uh uh I think the emotional growth, knowing when I'm feeling bad, or like feeling down or feeling like if I'm kind of feeling angry or whatever, it's like I have a better sense of knowing how to deal with those emotions versus like a reaction. Like I'll look toward a resolve instead of just a reaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Like actually processing processing the feeling and thinking about why you feel that way instead of like lashing out.
Yeah, yeah. And I still have moments like it's almost impossible not to, but like so much better at dealing with things. And also I think that's the other thing too about what we're talking about between with these creative endeavors that I have is that you can't control everything. So part of like I think emotional growth is like and as an artist, like you should focus on the things that you can control versus the things you can't control.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's how I've tried to kind of live my life because so many like whenever I see someone like I see so many like crises of control, like people freaking out about things that are outside their power or they're exerting power over other people or themselves. It's similar to something my dad told me when I was a kid. He said, and it's folksy, like southern-ish kind of wisdom, but he was like, "Don't sweat the small stuff, son." And by the way, it's all small stuff. So I always try to think about that. The
I
other,
like that. I'm gonna use that.
yeah, dude, absolutely, dude. Um,
Thanks, Dad.
he, I've had my issues with him, but he every now and then he has some like absolutely like quality like pearls of wisdom. I got one more thing I want to ask you, and then I got to go. I'm gonna go eat dinner with my fiance. I'd love to know like what so you've got Wicked Joyful on Instagram. There's another Donahue record on the horizon, is what I'm gathering.
Yeah. So we started recording it in February of 2019 and we kind of just wrapped it up at the beginning of 2020. So we spent a year. Again, nights and weekends. And we're hoping to we put out one single and did kind of a mini tour in the Northeast with the single. We put that out a few months ago, and then we're
Mm-hmm.
hoping to put out the whole record towards the end of we'll say fall 2020. That's like the aim right now. But given everything that's going on, might change that. But
Sure.
we were talking today to the producer, and then the band commented, and we have an idea, so we might put out a song relatively soon.
Oh, awesome. If
From Yeah,
And that would be from the new record.
we might put out another single, which would also show up on the new record later in the year. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome, man. I would
Which
love
I'm
to hear some
excited.
of that
Which I
stuff.
hope it happens. Which I hope it happens because it's timely.
Right on, man. And
It's got those vibes of isolation and existential dread, but also like a bit of hope in there lyrically. I think people will enjoy it.
awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear it, man. And obviously because of the state of the world, because you run this really killer show in Manchester. I haven't done it yet, but obviously, if you're bringing in national headliners and you have all these great acts, it's a great show, and I commend you for that as well. So that's still going to be going on once the world
Oh,
returns.
absolutely. So yes, Shaskeen comedy. So if you're looking for stuff, you could find Wicked Joyful on Instagram, and Donaher, Donaher. You can find if you like Weezer, Fountains of Wayne, power pop, and like pop punk like the Get Up Kids or Alkaline Trio. I think those are four decent you know that's a good barometer of what we sound like. You could find that Donaher on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. And yeah, Shaskeen comedy in Manchester, New Hampshire. You know the type of people we bring through, and Will, you're obviously welcome to come up anytime you want to do a spot, or if you find yourself in the Boston area, you always got a show to do on a Wednesday night and a place to crash as well. We can play Burger Time and Miss Pac-Man together here in my nerd cave.
That sounds great. I can't wait to do that, Nick. That's very nice of you. And as soon as
And
the world returns, I'm gonna take you up on that.
Yeah, please do, man. And you're gonna have dinner with your fiance.
Yes.
I pulled up. I'm gonna assume that you guys have been together for at least 5 years, right? 4 years.
Yeah. This year, this June will be 6 years, actually.
Well, I thought it was odd. I mean, it's I was listening to your voice here as we record this over the internet, and I was like, I need a picture of Will in front of me. And I pulled up this wonderful picture of you, and I assume your fiance, in front of a Christmas tree.
Yes, that's her.
Unless that's a family member, then it's gonna be really weird.
Is it woman shorter than me with long blonde hair?
Yes.
That's her.
Absolutely beautiful. Awesome. So yeah, I wish you and your fiance the best with your dinner tonight and beyond. And you guys always have a place to stay in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Awesome, man, and likewise. This won't be the last time we chat, Nick. We'll hang out once the world is righted, and I look forward to it, man. Thank you so much for talking to me, Nick.
Absolutely, thank you, Will. Take care.
You as well. Solid dude Nick is. Thank you, Nick, for your time and for chatting with me. I look forward to our further dissertations on class in films like Titanic and Dirty Dancing. If you want to check out Nick's Wicked Joyful Instagram account, that's at Wicked Joyful on Instagram, and you can find his band Donaher on whatever service you use to get your music. They've got a full-length album out that is excellent, as well as a single from maybe an upcoming release. And you can follow me on Twitter at Comic Will Carey. I would love to hear from you guys and read some messages on the show. I also want to give a shout out to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level, Mary Beth Mooney. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. And you can go to patreon.com/awesomedisaster. Check out the stuff that I've got going on exclusively for supporters over there. That's our show for today. Again, we are available wherever you get your podcasts, and I appreciate you guys listening to the show and telling other people about it. So thank you guys again for listening, and I will see you next time between Awesome and Disaster. Stay safe, everybody.